Perspective Shift is brought to you by fdailycoaching.com. If you're seeking assistance to help navigate you through a difficult time or feel challenged to reach your full potential, Frank Daly can guide you to a perspective that will allow you to utilize your imagination and experience a more fulfilling and satisfying life. Frank has been working with people for over 20 years as a coach, helping them understand the power they have to transform their lives.
Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
Wonderful, Frank. Good to see you. Welcome back to Perspective Shift.
Yes, it is. Welcome. It's great. Good to be back.
Oh, yeah. Heading into fall, we got now
it's
in
still
September.
120 degrees outside.
Hey, hopeful.
Yeah, I think I don't drink coffee, but one of the people I work with went to Starbucks last week, and they got like a pumpkin
That's how you
latte.
know. That's how, in Western culture, that we are now officially
in Arizona,
fall.
because there's no leaves are turning.
Yeah,
and
right.
The weather it doesn't cool off till October here. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
So today's episode is special, guys. We're excited to jump into
work of
our guest today. Who are we covering today, Frank?
Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yes, Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm sure you guys have all heard of that before. This one's a great one for us because we've never covered Yogananda. However, he is a major, or has been and was a major influence in Western culture when it comes to, consciousness, new thought, etc. And he brought this over from India years and years ago.
Yeah, in 1920 he came over.
Which is, age 27.
Yep. So
he made his way over here from India. He did not want to.
No, he didn't.
He was actually kind of, I don't know if scared's the right word, but just disinterested.
Yeah, but he was told, or he had the impulse to go over, so he came over. Mm-hmm. And so he introduced us to, yoga and different types of meditation, which it wasn't too much. And one of the reasons he was really accepted here in the U.S. in the West is because he talked about Jesus a lot.
Yep.
And I know one of his books he had written too was Second Coming of Christ.
Okay.
So it's his analogy on all the writings.
Well, I think that's why he, initially got the acceptance he did when he came over here and the attention of people. He wasn't talking about he wasn't talking about a Hindu god.
No.
And the fact that he related to Jesus, helped Westerners kind of be like, okay, what's this guy talking about?
Yeah, a different way of looking at how we may have been taught about Jesus and his works and what he'd said. So Yogananda gave a different spin on it, which was kind of, it's people like, things that are similar, but more expansive. So it wasn't completely foreign and alien to us. So, and he was a character.
Yeah.
He really was.
So Yogananda, I first saw his documentary back in 2014, the one Awake.
Awake, yeah.
Yep, and that was my first introduction to Yogananda. A few different things I wrote down just to kind of share with the audience that I thought were interesting is, first off, Yogananda was not born Yogananda. It was Mukunda Lal Ghosh or something like that, and it was born in 1893. And then he died here in the U.S. in 1952. He was a monk, a yogi, a guru. He came here to preach the balance of the West, teach us about, materialism, versus the Eastern philosophy. And he kind of came to tie that together. They called him the father of yoga in the West, and it was the, Kriya Yoga was his practice?
Yoga, yep.
And you want to talk about Kriya Yoga at all?
Yeah, Kriya Yoga. It's just about moving energy through the body. So a lot of and again, when you do stretching and stuff like that, it's part and parcel of it. But the main focus is moving energy through the body. So it's not necessarily, I know a lot of people, when they think of yoga, they think of doing downward dog and different types of poses. Although those are forms and putting the body in a certain position to allow the energy to move. So they're part and parcel. But the main focus is moving energy, mainly, obviously, through the spinal column. So moving up the spinal column, that's where electromagnetic field works. And then, obviously, the 7 chakras are aligned right with the spinal column.
Nice.
So it's kind of moving energy through that. And we're here in the West, we're becoming a lot more familiar with these type of terms and how to utilize that energy. Because, and that's why we picked him. It's like, as we move, all the people we talk about on the show and introduce, and all the concepts we introduce, it's about learning to let go of the old way. And it's not that the old way was bad, but it's about letting go of it to transcend to a higher level for a whole new experience. You don't have to try, but when you let go, you naturally transcend. Just kind of like when you let go of sandbags on a hot air balloon, the hot air balloon starts to rise. The sandbags were needed in the beginning to keep the hot air balloon hovering over the ground in order to acclimate to the level in which you're going to go. So we're not about telling people when they should let go, but on their own time. And Yogananda actually teaches people how to let go. And I remember he had a student when he was out in Mount Washington in California. This is years after he came to the United States, and he had this retreat center out there, and people put money into it. And this guy would come, and he would love being on Mount Washington and doing his thing and getting to the meditation, getting to this really great place. But then he says, is it bad for me to go down the mountain, so to speak, into my regular life and, crave having sex and stuff like that? And Yogananda's like, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that. He goes, but if you keep on this path, that won't occur for you to do that. You won't be drawn to it. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's making a transition. So living a life of abstinence is not what he teaches at all.
Not at all.
It will occur to you not to do things that you normally don't do down this path of spirituality.
Yeah, and we're not just talking sexual desires. He was talking drinking, drug use, you name it. He was just talking these, I don't want to say lower vibrational.
Well, that's right, because sex is the first, you look at the chakra. So when you're dealing with your root chakra, so it's based on it. The other things are actually addictions. So, but the sexual driving is survival. It's to reproduce, more life and stuff like that. Not that we won't be doing that. It's just that the urge of constantly focusing on it, or have a different look at it as we go to different levels of life. The understanding of having sex is a completely different meaning to it,
Absolutely. I love that how you talked about that, Frank, because so like a lot of like new age or a lot of like spiritual, teachers and stuff will talk as if this experience that we're having is incorrect, or it's not good for us, and this type of idea. At the end of the day, I think what Yogananda is saying, here, when he's talking about these different levels, is he's like, hey, look, there are multiple ways to live. There's no wrong way to live. It's just as you begin to come home, as you begin to find yourself, you begin to live differently. And I love that, because that's kind of like the world we're living in right now, which is, we're seeing that the world doesn't work. And what I mean by that is we're seeing that these like systems and ideas and, things we've been fed our whole lives don't work.
Why don't they work?
Well, it's because they're handed to us outside of us. We're told, we're being given our beliefs. We're not finding our beliefs.
Yeah.
We're being told what to think, and we're being told what to feel.
But at some point, they actually did work. We're just done with it. It's like kindergarten worked when I was in kindergarten.
And that's really what I'm getting at, which is it's not that this doesn't work. Sure, it can work, but it's one way of working. And there's multiple ways of working that we're not yet aware of. Yeah. And that we haven't like tapped into and tuned into. So like when people are talking about like Newtonian physics, for example, or, these are wrong, the science is wrong. It's like, no, the science isn't wrong. This is one way. This is a Newtonian way. But there are infinite ways, in my opinion, that things can work. And so there are multitudes of other ways that things can work. Yeah. And we've been taught one, and we're realizing, oh, wow, this doesn't work in this situation. Or we've been taught to live very limited lives when that's only one way of living. Yeah, perfectly said. Because that's what Newtonian physics wasn't wrong, and still isn't wrong. It's just, it's incomplete, but so is quantum physics is incomplete. Yep. So but what quantum taught us is that Newtonian is just one way. Yeah, but even quantum is incomplete as well. But you know what I mean? Yeah. Which is cool. Yeah, and I think that's what it is so as the aggravation seemingly grows in individuals, it may or may not be. It just means that what you're doing isn't necessarily wrong. You're just done with it. Well, and like people who are going through an experience, of like suffering or pain or something like that, it's hard for them to tune in and listen to somebody talk about how this suffering and this pain is not real and does not exist. And these people are going, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm feeling this. I know this is real. I'm experiencing it. And that's true. You are experiencing it. And that's one way of experiencing it. And it's not the only way. And you do not only have to suffer or only be depressed or only find this pain. Just outside, just behind that pain is peace, is love, is happiness. And we just have been taught that experiencing that does not allow me to access these other areas. And that's simply not true. We can let go. So it's more like acknowledging, like, yes, I'm fully aware that this exists. However, a lot else exists outside of this as well.
Yeah, and that's what Yogananda...
we limit a lot, or we tell people, oh, yeah, that suffering's not real. No, it's real.
Yeah, the experience of suffering, the sensation of
I've been there.
Suffering.
I know it's real.
Yeah, it's real. But it's the misunderstanding or
that's the only real.
Yeah, that's why we suffer. Mm-hmm. So Yogananda taught us how to go within, because we're always without. We're always looking outside of us, and if you're always looking outside, you're without. It means you need more and more and more and more, and everything continuously flees in the outside world. We're not here to say don't play in the outside world, but when you go within, you generate an energy force. Playing in the outside world is like a child in the playground. It's not something they're trying to conquer. It's just something they're experiencing. But as we became older, somehow we gained this understanding of conquering the outside world, controlling it like you can't. But when you control the inside frequency of your body, as you raise higher to a different frequency, you can actually see more of the valleys, so to speak. So Yogananda teach people how to rise higher to see even beyond. And it's not that Yogananda had seen it all. He hasn't. He was still in the human form. He hadn't seen it all. No one can. So it's kind of keep that in mind. Even Jesus himself said, even the least among us can do as I've done and even greater, implying that we're going to go even to greater places than he had. But yet, look at what he'd known over 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of this understanding, okay. But it's not about getting to these levels quickly, because that, again, is kind of the outside world mentality.
Chase.
It's allowing it, yeah. And when you allow it, there is no sinning other than thinking you're sinning or pointing out that others are sinning, and that then, into some retrospect, becomes a sin.
We have a great clip on that, too.
Yeah. Oh, we do? All right, perfect.
Where he talks about sinning like that.
All right, nice. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so Yogananda definitely started this movement, a big part of it with the yoga movement.
Do you remember when he came over? You said, wasn't it Boston where he first came over
to? Yeah,
he
first landed in Boston, mostly on the East Coast, and then made his way out. He made his way...
because he eventually ended up in California, right?
Yes, yeah, in Mount Washington.
Okay.
I know he went down to a place in the South. He actually did one where, this is on Awake, mm-hmm. the documentary, where he was in the South, and he goes there, he goes into this church or something to do a talk, and he realized there's only white people in there.
Oh, really?
And he didn't realize that here in America
I'm the only brown guy sitting up front.
Well, they accepted him.
Of course.
But what he realized is, like, you guys segregate here? Like, he wasn't...
Oh, was it actually segregated?
Oh, yeah. Like, you think about the time he was here.
Yeah, I guess the time period.
Like, when the Civil Rights Movement wasn't until the 60s, he was already dead.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So, because he died in 1952. Mm-hmm. Was it 52?
Yeah, 52.
Yeah, 52. So,
in California.
Yeah, so he was down, parts of South, and he realized, well, then he actually did a whole nother talk just around African-American people at the time. But he realized that I don't think it dawned on him, because in India...
I do remember this now from the documentary, actually, because didn't he speak to both audiences?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I do remember that. And he was upset about it.
I think he was in shock. Like he hadn't experienced that. Yeah, he hadn't experienced that, because if you go to Boston, New York, obviously even back then it was still like separation, but it was more accepted in the North than it was in the South.
So do you think the only reason he was up front and was allowed to speak was because he was had brown skin rather than black skin?
No, I think it was the idea, the concept. He was speaking about Jesus.
Okay.
So it's funny because someone that's even a bigot. Mm-hmm. Say a bigot loves baseball, right? well, they were gonna watch Jackie Robinson regardless.
Yeah, I see.
Because he was a great baseball player. Yeah. But once he wasn't on
playing
the field
baseball.
playing baseball, he was a different person. So this weird duality mentality that we have, it's kind of it's funny. I don't mean funny in a way that it's funny. It's just funny in a crazy ass way that we think. So people were able to separate.
How we act like that's normal.
Yeah. But once he actually started to integrate and get people to integrate, I wouldn't say the majority, but some people in that area turned on him.
Wow.
Yeah, they turned on Yogananda. And I guess he was never used that either. Like,
yeah.
You know, he's teaching love and stuff, and people like hating on him.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's probably why I went to California.
The book he wrote, The Autobiography of A Yogi, that sold over 4 million copies. That, to this day, is still one of the most well-known, books out there when it comes to, this and these types of concepts. And so to still see this be, regularly purchased and in publication, I mean, it shows you how powerful, the information is.
Yeah.
It's still today very relevant. One thing that I thought was cool from the documentary too is how they talked about Steve Jobs. It was the only book that was on his iPad or whatever, where it was the Autobiography of a Yogi, and he also gave it to 500 guests at his funeral or something, or his memorial, something like that. It was like the only book he gave to guests. And it's funny because, we have these like successful people here in the West, like a Steve Jobs, and we see like this type of material turning up again in all these different people's stories, whether that's famous athletes, whether that's people who have made huge impacts on our world. And then like when you run around what we call the real world and we pretend that this like information doesn't exist, or that it's woo woo, or that I just find it so funny watching it like pop up and consistently come up amongst the greatest individuals in our lives.
Yeah, what we call successful in the West, but also too, it's kind of what Yogananda, like to make a point here. And he would have said this if he's still here. It's not to give him accolades; it's the information that's coming through him. Yeah. So too often in the past, we give too much to the messenger, not the message. So here on this show, it's all about the message, not necessarily the messenger. But obviously the messenger, we point out so people could find the actual message. So we see all these different messages. They're all saying the same. I was like, the Brian Scott podcast. Love that guy.
He is great. We should try to get Brian on the show.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Yeah. He'd be a great guest.
Yeah, he would be. But I love listening to stuff. He's very inquisitive, very curious. And he was talking about like how, and I don't know what time frame it was for him, but, reading on Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard, and really loved that take on it, because they use the Bible, especially mostly the New Testament based on Christ, in order to formulate a different understanding of how we may have been taught in church, especially for me in Catholic Church. I've never heard this stuff. Not that I was being taught wrong in Catholic Church. I don't want to ever say that. It's just, it was a different way of looking at it in the way it was presented. But
proud of you for saying that, because I mean, I'm sitting here going, I was taught wrong.
Yeah.
In my head when you were saying that, I was like,
I can't say I was taught wrong. It's just maybe I didn't understand at the time. Well, to the point where Brian Scott said this, and I thought it was brilliant. He goes, when he first started, I think he was reading the Autobiography of a Yogi, he rejected Yogananda.
Really?
Yeah. And then later on realized, wow, there is no difference between how, Joseph Murphy, Neville Goddard, and him. And the reason he chose those three is because they used the scriptures in that form. And he realized it's just different. So he created an aha moment. And I listened to one of his podcasts, he did a whole podcast on just the book that Yogananda did, was called The Second Coming of Christ.
Oh, okay.
And it was a brilliant podcast. But it's nice to see people expand and grow. But then again, part of the rejection, and I believe Brian will say this, it was because he wasn't ready for the teaching at the time. So yeah, if you're out there, listen to even this, and you're like, okay, it's not for me. Don't think there's something wrong with you, and nor do you say it's forever, for now. Never say never is where that statement come from. And I've rejected things early on in my life, and then when they resurface, I'm like, this is the most brilliant piece of information I've read. And then I'm thinking, why didn't I read it before? I'm like, well, obviously I wasn't ready for it. It didn't resonate with me.
That was Eckhart Tolle for me.
Yeah.
I remember that. At first, it was like over my head. It just wasn't making sense. And it wasn't until I found Eckhart later in life where I was like, huh,
this makes sense.
This guy's brilliant.
Yeah. But that's just how it is. It's like, and even though you say it was over your head, where you were was not wrong. These are, when we talk about these fields of energy and levels, they're greater fields and less than, but less than and greater do not
mean good or bad.
No, there's no connotation of good and bad here. It's just different frequencies, because even the frequency I'm at, okay, I could say to some degree I'm at a higher frequency I've ever been in my life, but I don't even know where the top is. Like I don't even know like what is the top. Okay, say I'm cycling at 140, 150,000 hertz per second. And someone's like, okay, well, Christ was cycling at about 3,000. Okay, I have some bit of gauge. I'm halfway to Christ.
I only need 2,800.
I'm halfway to Christ. But the second I have like a conversation, like second, I get upset at Karen, I cycle down to about 90. Something happens, it pulls me down. So I'm fluctuating all over the place at times.
But that's what happens in life. We have that experience at work with a colleague or whatever, and we get down in the mud and we start, fight with them or, letting our egos get involved. And then we ruminate and we stay there. And this is that fluctuation of the energy field that we, talk about all the time on this show.
But if you were cycling, say that, it's good you brought that up, but say you were actually, cycling at a high level. I'm not going to use frequency measures anymore, but just say you were at this level, feeling good for a while, and then you get down in the mud. The beautiful thing about when you get down in the mud, there is another level.
Yep.
Where before my mud was my highest cycle. Like that was where I was at.
I know that feeling.
And so what this tells me is it's not about trying to get to a higher level. I just know there's this major expansion going on in my world, the world around me, and it's infinite. So knowing it's infinite and allowing myself to know it's infinite, I'm no longer trying to get to a higher level than I am now. What happens though is by the byproduct of not trying, all of a sudden things open up and I just allow it to happen. Because once we start letting go of certain beliefs, like Yogananda brought different ideas and concepts into our world, not necessarily beliefs, but letting go. As we let go of beliefs, we naturally rise. It doesn't mean I have to gain a new belief. I'm just letting go. I'm letting go of the sandbags from the hot air balloon I'm in. And when I do that, it allows it to rise to a higher level. And when I go to a higher level, I see more of the valley, so to speak. And I see more and more as I go higher. But I don't want to rush through that. I want to sometimes, marinate in the level I'm at right now. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. This is great. And then when the sense of boredom or plateau comes back, okay, what other belief can I let go of? And these are natural byproducts that happens. Mm-hmm. So the work here is just allowing, acknowledging, and and kind of acclimating into the setting. When you actually use these type of tools, it's like, wow, life is great. You're no longer forcing it, but it's naturally elevating.
Yeah,
it really is. When I tried to elevate, it was exhausting, because in order to try to elevate, it means I had to have everything lined up, such as, no traffic today. Everyone has to be nice to me at work. And if they weren't, I pointed out to them. And, I was trying to fix the outside world. I was trying to rearrange the furniture in my house, thinking I'm in a different house. For a split second, it felt like I was a different house, but I wasn't. Same furniture, just the couch is on a different wall now. And I can't watch TV now.
Funny how we do that.
Yeah, it is.
Let's dive into our first Yogananda clip.
All right, let me...
Seek ye the kingdom of God first. No matter what your vocation is, first seek God. If he sees us too busy to think of him, God says, I'm too busy to throb in your heart where your engagements be. All have to be cancelled in a minute. So do not forget. Keep your engagement with God at night. Never in my life I have missed that. And through that I find that all day long is replete with his consciousness. As the disciples of Christ on the day of Pentecost, they were men with new wine, with the new wine of ecstasy. Then it is pleasure to work with God. With God, the world is a nest of happiness. Without Him is a nest of sorrows. So remember, on this occasion, that we are bringing the consciousness of living Christ in life. All day long when I see you all working incessantly with pleasure and smile on your face, I know you are working for God, not working for your own pleasure or your own physical comforts. When I see you meditating, I know you are with God and Christ and the great ones. Happiness, true happiness is the goal of life. And true happiness and God are identical. For even in evil, people are seeking God. Like in an acre where there are mostly broken glasses and a few diamonds, people go after the little glasses shining with the light. Then after they bring those little glasses near their vision, they say, well, it's not the diamond. Unless you find the true diamond of happiness, you will never be happy seeking the pseudo-shining glass of happiness. True happiness lies within simplicity of living and whole living in God.
I love that message.
Yeah. Great first clip.
Yeah.
You know, for him to say first seek God, you know,
Yeah.
what he's talking about with God, as he clearly states in there, is he says, true happiness and God are identical. And he's talking about going to that silence, that place within.
Yeah. And it's kind of almost like right now, like a lot of times people talk about like manifestation or getting, manifesting what you want. And then you ask yourself, why do I want that? Because I think in having it, I'll be happy. Well, he's directing you to happiness and then allow whatever to come. So when you're in a state of happiness and he says happiness and God are the same, you're seated at home with the Father, the right hand of the Father. That's what it really means. We are happiness. We just have a lot of veils, thick veils in front of us in order to actually experience who we are. I must conquer this. I must achieve this. And it's ridiculous because if you really want to have true achievement in life, you want to start from the place of happiness and seated at the right hand. And then all of a sudden, the achievement, what we call achievement, becomes effortless.
Yeah.
So it actually works into your benefit to utilize your happiness, the state in which you came here, and then watch what happens.
I love how you said that. That was perfect. And good notes on the veils, because the veils that is the hard part, because we say like, oh, I can't be happy right now. My mother's in the hospital. I can't be happy right now. I don't have enough money in my bank account.
Yeah.
I can't be happy right now. You know, my children's, you know, struggling with school. And these are all veils. And we tell ourselves these stories. And it's through these stories and this narrative and these different narratives that we have running in our head that keep us trapped. And I shouldn't say trapped, but more just keep us from elevating.
Purgatory.
You know, because
it's
because
like a
it's
trap.
not,
Yeah.
but it's not like again, it's a trap of our own doing. You know,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's like it's something that you can easily let go of. So I wouldn't call it a trap because you can get out. We have the ability to get out.
I notice everyone does. I know people that suffer a lot, and I would bring this up like, oh, I'm suffering. I have depression. Like, well, how do you know you have depression? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, in order to know something as depression, it's a comparison away from happiness. Like, yes. I'm like, you obviously have been happy recently in order to know you're depressed. Because if depression is all you knew, you wouldn't be talking about it. Mm-hmm. If, you know, and that's the truth. If there was only one color in the world, such as blue, you wouldn't need to name it blue.
You would just be blue.
It would just be. Because it's blue. The reason it's blue because there's other colors. Yeah. So in order to, we focus on, your attention goes when you are depressed rather than when you are happy. So your default mechanism becomes depression. And then what Yogananda's example is, you're always looking for the shiny diamond outside of you when you are the shiny diamond. That's why you recognize the outward shiny diamond. But that's who you are. You don't need the physical attribute of it.
Nor do you need to do or achieve anything to rest in that state.
No, but when you actually are in that state, it's amazing. You, like he mentioned too early in that clip, that when you are working, you're working for God. And what he means by that, break it down another way, not that I have to clarify it too much. when I'm working for the state of feeling I'm in. Like there's some bit of gratification. It's not like, okay, at the end of work, I'm going to get more money so I can go, buy my friends a round of drinks, or I'm making enough money so I can pay my bills. It's not that. If you're working for the money or for the gratification afterwards, it's going to shut you down. But if you're working in the moment and enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you do, it becomes a form of meditation. And in that meditative state, you got a smile on your face, you like it. And what happens is the byproduct is, if you're working with someone, they're going to pay you more. Yep. They will. They want to be around you more. Like, why can't everyone be like you? Mm-hmm. And it's not even the person's trying to be productive, but you naturally become productive.
Well, this is why we say, you got to do what you love, and people who, like wealthy, when you hear them up on stage talking about you gotta follow your passion, you gotta do something you love. That's because money is an energy. Money is attracted to us. Money comes through giving. Just like the breath. You can't have the in with the out. Same with giving and receiving. One of the best.
And that's a good point, because we talked about this on another podcast. But when we focus on the giving, and why, like, it's better to give than receive, we're told, right? So I'm like, is it? Well, when I break that down, the reason you could say it's better or greater is because I have control over giving. I don't necessarily have control over receiving, so to speak. So if I give, I automatically receive. So if I take the initiative to get into the field of giving, which is love, then I receive it. But if I'm waiting to be loved, if I'm waiting for the money, that's purgatory. So, but again, like Mike said, breathing in and out is just called breath. So if I focus on breathing in, the breathing out will take care of itself. I don't need to focus on that as well. Or I could. But it's one and the same. You can't have one without the other.
I do want to point out too, at least from, outside looking in, when I was working, different jobs, if you will, I remember like there's no giving in these a lot of these jobs that like we're so tired and burnt out, these 9-to-5s, and it's because there is no giving. And as I started my own business and I got in, I realized how much the giving part is in the receiving part. So when we're working these jobs, and we're not giving, in fact, we go to work upset, angry. I shouldn't be here. I'm not paid enough. It has nothing but this about me. I'm not taken care of. We're looking. We're not giving any aspect of ourselves, and so it's hard to receive anything. And this is why we stay choked out in these shitty dead end jobs.
Yeah, beautifully said. Because I know people that were working for people, didn't like it, and then they started their own company and still didn't like it.
Yeah.
Because the complaint was different. Oh, the damn boss won't give me enough. Now it's the damn employees aren't working hard enough. And all of a sudden,
because you can work at a dead end job and find your purpose.
But it's only a dead end job through perception.
Exactly.
There is no such thing as a real dead end job. It's just a moment in time in which you're at a place where you're doing something, and whatever state and perception you choose to have will elevate you or keep you in prison.
But it's always there's no giving in that state. It's always, no. I'm not paid enough. I'm not looked at as worthy. Nobody sees what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's me. There is no giving whatsoever in those environments.
Yeah.
And so it's like trying to breathe in and not breathing out. You're literally like, no, I can't breathe. You can't breathe if you're not giving and getting out.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it just reminded me of, remember Renee Christian, which she said last week? Of course. She was a guest on a show last week. She said, she brought up the idea of like paying bills. Like, I got to pay bills. It's like you should be proud or should be accepting of paying bills, because look at paying, it's like a gift to pay a bill. It means you have a house over your head. So when you look at it differently, you're still paying the bills, you're still going to work, but the way you're looking at it, it's completely different, and it makes you feel better. And when it makes you feel better, you get to a higher level, all of a sudden you may get the raise, or you just may love your job more and just start to make more friends. All these other things start to rise, but that's not why you do it. You do it because it feels so much better to say, oh my God, my bill's, $3,000 a month on my, I'm like, well, you must have a nice house, Yeah, I never looked at it that way.
No,
Yeah.
I love what you're saying there, and I know this is truth because I started doing this about like 3-4 years ago. When I get a water bill or when I get an electrical bill, I don't go, "Oh my God, these bills!" Like I was grown up and taught, you know.
Yeah,
and
I just have Karen pay the bills.
No, I truly thank myself when I'm paying a bill.
Yeah.
Especially like the water one. I'm thankful that I've got clean running water. I'm thankful that I have hot water, you know, and I gladly pay that bill. And I give thanks that I have the ability to pay that bill.
Yeah.
Totally different feeling than, oh my God, another bill arrived.
Yeah.
It really is. And that little slight change of mind absolutely works. And I can attest to it.
You know, it's funny. Most of my life, I've been a seemingly happy person. But there was a moment in time when I became an adult where, like, the 30th of every month, I just freaked. I was like Scrooge.
Yeah, right.
Like, God damn. Because, you know, it was back in the day when you had to write out a check. Now I have auto pay, so I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
But I used to write out the check. I'm like really tough writing out the check, put date on. I'm like, should I rip this freaking thing up? And you get angry. And then I put it in the mailbox. A couple days later, I go back to being happy again. It was this weird, vicious cycle.
No, we've been taught that way. We have been conditioned, you know, that I'm losing some, I'm giving up money, I'm not saving. And it's funny, like, it's that mentality that keeps us so in a rut.
Yeah, try breathing in and don't give the carbon dioxide away.
Yeah,
just try
exactly.
To do it.
That's
dare
the
anybody.
exact example.
Let me know how far you get.
And it's perfect. We're all trying to. But I don't want to breathe out. I can't.
And by the way, if anyone out there is going to attempt to take, make sure there's pillows around you.
Yeah, right.
You will pass out.
Gosh. Yeah. I said we jump into the next clip.
All right, here we go.
Don't you ever call yourself a sinner or anybody else. That is the greatest sin. Just forget it, what you've done in the past, and don't do it again. Then you will again remember what you are. To remind people that they are immortal beings is the only truth. When you see a gas burner, the little light shooting over the gas burner, you see underneath, if you look underneath, you'll see one flame. Over there is little flames. But if you switch out the gas burners, all the little lights, tongues of flame become one light again and become extinguished. So are we. You are all little channels of God. The little light of God is shooting through you. So you are moving. When that light will go on, you will be cold meat. So you came from Him and you go back home within Him. It is that what sustains. That's unchangeable. That is unchangeable. So the thing is, if a perfect flame of God is thrown into the body, how can it go back? And when we have been given the free choice to do good and evil, that means we are responsible. We have been made responsible for our actions. We are not like the animal. The animal commits no sin. It commits no sexual sin, it commits no murder, nothing at all, because nature works with them. All the animals are immoral. They are murderers, murdering each other, eating each other, but they don't pay for their karma. But they have no freedom to get out unless the Lord frees them. Unless their souls are put into human bodies, they cannot be free. But we have free choice. In one sense, though it is one life, one thing is most outstanding when we observe human beings. The difference. Were we made different by God? Just as the director gave different parts to the different actors. But remember, the director chooses people according to their talents. So God chooses people according to our talents, how we use our free choice. And according to that, our parts are given in this world. And yet, why is it there is inequalities in life? Certain moods, certain deficiencies of the mind, certain qualities keep pouring forth from unknown quarters. Now this man that killed the little girl, he said, I couldn't help it. I had to do it. Where does it come? Did God make him that way? Well, he must be a terrible God then. If he did just give that impulse to this man who killed the little girl. We have to look into the past. That our evil tendencies, violent evil tendencies, do not come as a result, fixed by God in this life, but as a result of our bad habits of the past. There cannot be any other reason. Otherwise, absolutely it doesn't make sense why somebody is made sweet temper and somebody is like a hyena or like a tiger, ready to jump on you minute you talk. Somebody is born with silver spoon in the mouth and somebody is struggling all the time and has no money. Somebody has indigestion and plenty of money. He can't eat enough, and somebody is hungry. He has better metabolism and can eat lots, but he has no money to buy food. This show has to be different. But these are the results of man's own doing. That sometimes, somewhere, we misuse our God-given freedom.
Beautifully said.
I love how he starts out with,
Yeah.
"Don't you ever call yourself a sinner."
Yeah.
I thought that was great. He was like, "Forget it, move on." You know,
Yeah.
quite the opposite of what we're taught. You know, growing up in the Catholic faith.
Yeah, because the problem is when you make a choice that what we call is wrong, it means it wasn't working out for you. But in the moment in which you make a choice and you realize it's not working out, the next choice could be I learned from that. But if you tell someone it was a sin, it's like, okay, what do I have to do to get rid of this? And they put you to this long, arduous experience or practice. And I'm like, wow, now I'm not going to, like, why bother?
Then you're afraid to make your next move, which is a lot of where we're all at.
And when you're afraid to make your next move, you make the wrong choice in the move.
People are so afraid to look stupid that they don't allow themselves to move forward or make a choice or try something because they would rather stay the same. And even if that would work out for them, they'd rather, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. We're taught that.
Yeah.
Through sin. We're taught that.
Yeah. And that's what, because
that was my favorite part of this clip.
Yeah.
Because first sentence.
Yeah. Because when we sin, we now have to go over and figure out what we did wrong. But in the moment when I made a choice to do something, I knew right away, okay, it's wrong. So then I could get out of it. So I make a right-hand turn, and it's like, oh shit, make a U-turn, go left. Mm-hmm. But if you made a right-hand turn, realize it's not working, I sinned. Now you got to pull the car. You got to realize, okay, what did I do? Okay, I have to do penance. I got all this work. And then after a while, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going right and making more decision after more decision based on some false premise rather than who we really are.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, because this world is about going in through an experience. All right. And when we have what we call good experience, it means when we make a choice in the direction of a preferential, we go in with the flow, it just seems a lot easier. When we make a choice that goes against it, it tells us it doesn't work. And if we were allowed to do that, all of a sudden, the greater you get in life, the less of these turns you make. You notice it right away. Like I notice right away when I do something that's not working, I just let it go. I don't say, oh my God, I did something wrong. I'm like, oh, that didn't work, and then so I'm getting greater at this. Am I ever going to be perfect? I remember Karen asked me one time, she's like, you think we'll ever get to a point where we're not arguing? And she made it like, she's waiting for that place. I'm like, I'm like, well, that's not my goal. But I said, hey, 7 years ago, if we got into a very similar argument to where we are right now, I would just simply kept quiet and said, get my car and go home and say, I'll give you a call in the morning. Mm-hmm. Now, 5 minutes later, we're laughing about it. Yeah. So I'm like, we've come a long way. But my goal isn't to never argue, never to make the wrong hand turn. It's just when I do, how do I get out of it quicker? Well, because of allowing that to happen, not really accepting it, but allowing it, I pivot. And then all of a sudden, I say less stupid things less often because it's always
great
me.
Example.
It's always me starting the damn.
But no, that's exactly it. When you fall out of this, you realize quicker.
Yeah,
there's like this it feels different, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. You become really good at this.
It's kind of understanding your tuning, if you will. You're very in tune with your body. And when you fall into these lower states, if you will, or, something that you would deem non-preferential, you're like, okay, I recognize this as a point, which direction would I like to go?
You make a U-turn.
Well, that's what he's talking about right here. He says free choice, The director chooses people to come here based on their talents, but it's this free choice.
Yeah, and that's a great, I like that analogy is because when the director chooses you for your talent, unfortunately, what we do is we mistake the whole understanding of the movie itself. And all of a sudden, if I'm an actor and I'm signed on to this particular role and I got these particular talents, well, if I see something else in somebody and I get like enamored by them, now I falsely think I want to be them. Well, guess what? The director's like, "What are you doing?" Mm-hmm. Like, I like his role better. I'm like, the reason you probably like his role better or her role better is because they're fully invested in it. It's not the role, it's the investment they give into the role. Mm-hmm. So when I watch someone do something now, whether it's hiking Mount Everest or tight roping across the Grand Canyon, I certainly don't want to do both of those things or any of those things at this moment in time. I'm not going to say I'll never want to, but it's the focus it takes for an individual to do that is what I'm admiring and is what I want to then bring back into my life when I do the activities I prefer to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, that's why I admire other people. But if I thought it was like, oh, man, I want to be good like that, but I don't want to walk over the Grand Canyon on a tightrope. That's just crazy. So then I defeat myself in thinking I'm not worthy. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when we can compare. But if I
and that's what we're doing all over the place.
Yeah.
With how we look. Am I skinny enough? Am I this?
Based on
Am I smart
what?
enough?
Yeah, based on when you ask yourself the question, why do I feel this way? And you'll come down to an answer. It's because somebody else said I ought to be this way, and well, who are they? Mm-hmm. But also too, if you believe you're a sinner, you're gonna always make I can't do any better. So you're always gonna make the wrong choice. And when I mean wrong choice, is you're gonna make a choice that's working against you because you think this is who you are. And when you do that, from that mindset, it's proven that this is as good as I am. But I'm like, yeah, because that's the experience you have. You can't let go of the possibility of having any other experience to the moment in which you come to wake up from that. And when Yogananda came to the United States, he woke a lot of people up to that. Because everyone knew. It's like, okay, I don't like this. There's something wrong. I don't like this. And he brought a perspective, and people were like, oh, like the gentleman that was at his retreat place in Mount Washington. It's like, you mean it's okay when I go down the mountain and I do this? He goes, yes. But what you'll find out is one day it won't occur to do that. Not that it's wrong. You just elevate to a different level to where that type of activity is no longer needed. Just like, playing with Play-Doh is no longer needed because I'm no longer in,
preschool.
Yeah, preschool. Yeah, exactly. I still play with Play-Doh though. Kind of cool. I haven't graduated yet.
But all of these things are things that we're all experiencing.
Yeah.
And we're all going through this.
Yeah, that's it. And we're all one in that facet.
And also just on the Jesus thing, just because Yogananda, is a big speaker of Jesus. Jesus came here to share that you are an equal. He did not come here to teach you are a sinner. And that's where, the church got this. And I don't want to say the church got this wrong, but I want to say that this was manipulated by authority figures within the church and different, kings and people. They saw this text giving too much power to the common person. And this is documented, this is history, this is factual information, and that's why we edited, parts of the Bible. That's why things were removed. That's why books were taken out, Gospels were taken out. I'm King James. Look, man, I don't want these people thinking, or knowing, I should say, what they're capable of. Who the hell is going to, build my fires? Who's going to build my castle? Who's going to do this if they know, what they're truly capable of? And then this got handed down and down and down. Yeah. And then we're at where we are today. So again, it's how we were taught and presented this information is how I see it as, incorrect or one way of looking at it. But there are a number of ways to look at it.
Yeah, because that way has a dead end. Yep. So you look back at the people who did that. Make sure you yourself aren't doing it. That's how we change it. We can't go back and change the past other than our perception of it. And so, like, getting upset at those people, I'm not upset with them. But, okay, am I trying to control somebody to get what I need from the outside world by using these principles? And if I start doing that, I am no different than the people that did it before us. So I'm no longer trying to get anyone to do anything to make me happy. It's my job to become happy.
Yep, exactly.
So when you see that, don't just blame and point. Realize, am I doing this? And sometimes if I'm blaming and pointing, I'm doing it to a degree. So
I would say every time, because that's the whole point of this reflection.
Yeah, it is.
Know?
So
if you find yourself in that state, it's telling you, whoa,
yeah,
I need to look at what's going on.
History could be a very positive thing if you look at it and say, okay, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take Hitler, what am I doing that has traits that Hitler had? Am I judging? Do I think I know better than everybody else? Do I think if people lived the way I lived, it'd be a better place? You know, and even if you have a little bit of it in you like that, you might want to get rid of that because, you know, Hitler had a lot of it in him. We know that, but it built somewhere. It came from someplace, and it festered and grew. Because we know in physics, whatever direction you go in, it will grow. Period. You have no choice of that.
That's how momentum works.
So when you plant the seed, remember what seed you're planting, because that tree will grow.
Mm-hmm.
So when we reflect on history and people, what am I doing, or if I'm doing any of that, I might want to lift from that. I want to maybe go inside and meditate on that, make sure I don't continue doing that. So
that's the only way to free yourself from it.
And that's what Yogananda came here to do. He didn't come here to tell anyone was doing anything wrong or bad, but hey, if like obviously the murderer who murdered the child didn't really want to do it.
Mm-mm.
So how do we get out of that? Well, it's easy for me to look at the murderer of a child like, you're a bad person. Oh, shit, now I'm judging them. I'm not saying accept that behavior. But, okay, how did that person get there? Well, I may never know. Because I've never experienced wanting to murder a child. Except for my kid threw spaghetti on the floor one time.
Kill your son over spaghetti, Frank.
You get to that point
There's gotta be something worse than that.
Yeah, my son's good. Hopefully he doesn't hear this one. Yeah, he understands me. But you know what I'm saying.
I get exactly what you're saying. We got one last clip from Mr. Yogananda.
I remember one day I was in the movies. Movies has one fascination because I see the whole world as movies. I was in the booth. And I saw the operator was reading a novel. And I saw this automatic machine was going on and the beam was causing on the screen a terrible horror picture. And I said, Lord, how is it? I have the whole show of the universe in front of me. You are this operator who is thinking of new plays. And your nature is throwing this beam in the sky. And I see the hero and the villain are nothing but pictures. Nobody is killed. Many were being killed and shot in this picture. But I saw from the booth, it was the light that had created the villain, and the light had created the hero. And a voice said, remember, the villain is created so that you don't become the villain, but that you love the hero. If you become the villain, your throat has to be cut. And now you see that there is no villain, no hero. They are both pictures of my beam. After getting away from the villain and evil, or tasting poisoned honey, taste the honey of goodness and then come into the beam. And you will realize that all this world which you see of terrible wars and troubles is nothing but a picture show, cosmic motion picture show in the sky. You will be surprised. You never analyze that as soon as you sleep and dream, you can create a world like this. With people suffering from cancer and disease and wars and some smiling babies born, old men dying. Then when you wake up, you see that all those things were made of your dream consciousness. So remember, this is the same, nothing different. And until you find that out, this world is a terrible show. I said to God, as He was talking to me, but Lord, look at the audience. They are howling and screeching downstairs at this horror show. I see that it's nothing but pictures and light, because I see the invisible beam. There are no murders in the beam. No heroes, not villains in the beam. But Lord, what about the audience? They don't know it. Then the voice said, Tell them all to look at my beam within, and they will realize that this show was given to entertain them, not to get mixed up with it. That's why, remember, every night he makes you a God. Every night he withdraws you from this movie, cosmic movies, and makes you realize you are the Son of God. You are made in His image. You cannot be violated or hurt by stones, nor bombs, nor machine guns, nor atomic bombs. Remember, the best shelter is in the silence of your soul. And if you can develop that silence, nothing in the world can touch you.
I like that a lot.
Best clip.
Yeah. So, yeah, that pretty much what I got from that is he's taken you out of the concept of attaching yourself to the very characters on the screen. So, and you yourself are a character.
He's telling you exactly what this experience is.
Yeah, and when we learn to detach from our character, we still play it, but we don't hold too much weight to it, and that's where suffering comes from. Because if I think I am Frank Daly, I'm like, well, there's been multiple Frank Dalys in my lifetime. Obviously, there's Frank Daly at 5, 10, so on and so forth. Well, I've changed the characterization of who I am over time because I was able to let go of it. But if I couldn't, I would still be kicking and screaming because I didn't get ice cream. Mm-hmm. I still do that, though. I still do that. Karen will bring home ice cream, and I do the opposite. I kick and scream because she brought it home because I know I'll eat it.
Because you know what's going.
Yeah, so maybe I haven't grown. So, but when I attach to the character who I think I'm playing, this overwhelming peace, this beautiful sense of peace overcomes me.
When you detach?
Yeah, when I detach, and I let go of it. But yet I still play it. Then I can go in like I'm playing a movie, like an actor plays in a movie. Just act it out, but don't become a what do they call those actors that get into the role? Method acting.
Method acting.
Yes. Like a lot of method actors, I could be wrong on this, but a lot of method actors I've heard of had very difficulties after the movie they did, especially if it was a deep, dark role. They would have to like dry out for months before they could do the role. And I remember one time, and I don't know too much about that because I'm not an actor in the position of the business, so to speak, but I am an actor, right? Anthony Hopkins was being interviewed, and I thought it was really good because the interviewer asked him, "Are you a method actor?" And he goes, No. And then it was funny. The next thing the guy asked him was like, "So is there any bit of Hannibal in you?" And he goes, "Heavens no." He goes, "It's called acting. When the director said cut, I went back to being myself." He didn't carry it with him. And why I brought Anthony Hopkins up, no one could really argue that he's not a great actor. I'm not saying he's better or worse than any other method actor. I'm not saying method acting's bad, but they carried that stuff with them, giving them some horrors in their life. Like Heath Ledger became method actor
through free choice.
Yeah, maybe free choice, but I think a misunderstanding that you had to attach yourself fully in order to really care about life. I'm like, no, you don't. There's a way to detach, but you get into the role, but you let go of it. Actually, I once heard somebody ask I think it was Bashar or Abraham, one of those, at the conference. Yep. And they said, okay, if negative thought can create cancer and disease, what happens if I'm an actor playing an actor that has cancer? And I want to say it was Abraham. And Abraham said, well, you knew you were acting, right? Like, yes, you don't have to worry about attracting cancer. But if you thought you were that person and the role ended and you kept doing it, you're going to get cancer. But because you're acting, it's not who you are. You can feel that. You can get that energy in the moment in which you're shooting. But once you let go of it, it's no longer you. Yeah. It doesn't sink in because we can change multiple times per second. And we go into a theme. But I could be this dark person. Once I let go of it, I'm no longer that person. So that's the free will of choosing a different frequency, a different character, a different way of feeling about it. But if you have to get into that character that you don't necessarily like, just let go of it. But when we have a tough time letting go of it, this is what kind of wrecks our life. Yeah.
Well said. I wrote down a few different things from this one because this is my favorite clip But he says, I see the whole world as movies. And, this is such a great statement, because that's really what this experience is. We have these different narratives, or we can call them scripts, that are running in our head. And rather than saying, oh, I don't like that script, we feel as if we have no choice. That is our script, and we feel like, oh, no, this is what I have to do because this happened to me last week, and because this happened to me in high school, and this is how I grew up. So I have to carry this script. When we could easily, very simply, choose another script in that moment. And so I thought that was kind of unique that he said. But he also says it was the light that created the villain, and it was the light that created the hero. And I thought this was so perfect, because that's what we're talking about, guys. We are that light, and we create the villain. We create the hero. And this is at the essence of what everything is at, which is, yes, this experience was that of a villain, or that of, a heroic experience, but you're that light, and you're not the villain, you're not the hero. In fact, you're both.
Yeah.
And that's the paradox. That's this experience. We create the villain because we need a hero. We create the hero. Without a hero, or without a villain, we can have no hero.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was just really great.
Yeah, because we always focus on wanting to be the hero, but know this: in any movie, a villain could easily win the Academy Award because of their ability to act out as best they can.
Yeah. He says there is no villains, there is no heroes. There's just pictures. And that's what this experience is.
Yeah, it's and that's where the non-duality comes from, or the Trinity, however you look at it. And what that means is it's just a modulation of pixels through light. So
nothing but pictures.
Yeah,
and
like
light.
if you're ever in a movie theater, I don't know if so much now, but I guess you could still do it. But when you look back at the projector, and if there's any bit of dust particles in the air, you could see the beam of light coming into it, and that's just all it is. There is nothing there, but yet we cry, we laugh, we have the sensations of it actually happening. But when we leave the movie theater, we leave it behind. Some people will carry it with them for a little bit, but then they forget it. So why would you carry around the same role that when you got upset at somebody at work, to keep that around? Because we think, well, that's who I am. I'm like, no, that's who you're choosing to be in the moment, but you could choose another. Just like an actor will, okay, that movie's over, I'm going to choose another role.
Yeah.
So when you have the ability to choose another role, one that's more suitable for the state in which you want to experience, there becomes a free will. Yeah. You have choice.
And Yogananda said, when he was talking, he referenced it as God, but I mean, he was talking to Source, and Source said to him, look at my beam within. This is to entertain them, not to get them mixed up.
Yeah.
And that was powerful. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. Because that's the point. This is to entertain us, but it's for us to remember what we are. So it's like this interactive spirit experience. This is why people call Earth a school. We come here, with, projecting this beam of light.
Yeah.
And we're getting caught up in these, we're getting mixed up in these, stories, these narratives, these beams of light, saying, I'm this, I'm that, rather than seeing the whole show or the whole theater for what it is. I'm all of it.
Yeah. And when you're entertained, like people don't use it this way, but enter means to move into, and tain means reflection, the word tain. So I'm moving into a reflection of myself when I watch a movie. There's when I'm watching a movie, there's probably some character I'm going to, or maybe multiple characters I'm going to relate to. And even if the villain, I don't want to be the villain, is there a relatable part in me? Well, now's the opportunity to shift to another one. So that's another way of looking at entertainment. And kind of like what you said earlier about moving into different roles and be able to choose stuff. Like movies will allow us okay, I like this theme, and then move into another theme. Mm-hmm. So that's where the reflection comes in. That's why we love movies. We love TV. Mm-hmm. But realize we're the ones that are doing it too. A movie is just a fractal of who we are.
What were we talking about before we got on camera? You were kind of mentioning we've got our seat of the soul kind of right here, in our heart, and then it's the projection out.
Oh yeah. So it's another way of looking at it. There's no real true accuracy of this, but we think the soul or consciousness is within us. Well, there's a seed in us that helps project it, just kind of like someone who's flying a drone isn't actually in the physical drone. They're looking through it, but there is something in the drone that allows them to see through a camera. So there's a camera in the drone that might be the seed of the drone, allowing you to see from a greater distance up in the sky, which a drone will do, in order to see that. But the person or the soul that's looking what the drone sees is not physically in the drone. So we are in, and our response or the ability to have an experience in life is because we're inside consciousness. Consciousness is not in us. So because that we are, but there's a seed of me of consciousness that allows, say, the higher self to tie into it and see that. So there's something in me allows it to see what's happening. But who I really am is not in this body, or it's detached from this body. Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought that was beautiful. Something kind of cool to share with the audience.
Hope I didn't confuse you.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Yogananda has a lot to share with the world.
Yeah.
And I would start, with listeners, if you want more information, start with Awake, because that's what I saw, and that was released in 2014.
Yeah, it's
start
easy.
With that. I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but start with that.
Yeah.
Because it's cool. It's a easy way to digest, and, it's a good history. It kind of, breaks down the, Yogananda's life, how he came over from India to the America, or to the United States, all that. And it's a cool perspective, and it kind of shows, what he kind of had to deal with over here. Because, I mean, like anything, just because you're an enlightened individual does not mean you don't go through struggles, trials, tribulation. That is all detailed in Awake.
Yeah,
you remember? He has lots of ups and downs.
Yeah, he struggled a lot. He wanted to go back to India, but he remained, like we all do. But
it's just funny. A lot of us are looking for this enlightenment or this, moment where bad shit stops happening, or uncomfortable things no longer happen. And guys, that doesn't happen. No,
you get to a higher level so you can deal with the bad shit easier.
Yeah,
that's all.
I once heard the saying. It was like, I don't hurt, or it's something about how did they phrase it? You don't get, or things don't get easier. You get stronger. Life doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. And that's a good way of
It's also kind of like the scene in Matrix when he finally realized that, and the bullets were coming at him. He was able to slow it down.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole act becomes more, it doesn't become overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So the higher we get, the less this outside world becomes overwhelming, and then realize, oh my God, this is a gift. Mm-hmm. And try to keep your head above water. You actually enjoy swimming now. Yeah. You really enjoy swimming. So.
But yeah. Another thing that I would say is check him out on YouTube. Yogananda has some good stuff on YouTube. He's got a few, there's multiple different clips, but there's a lot of people who take like his readings, take his teachings, and then they share those, and they're spoken word, but you still get the essence of the teachings, which is cool. You can find some video on him too, and there's a lot of video in the Awake documentary, but you can see him, like going into the Samadhi state. I thought that was a very cool video. And again, these are from like the 1930s and earlier, and so it's cool to see that time period and see, just how long this information has been with us.
Yeah, it's been around for millennia. There's someone like him just resurfaced it here in the United States. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, if you like what you heard today, go to perspectiveshift.com and, Perspective Shift 2020.
Oh, are you talking about email?
Yeah, email.
Perspective Shift 2020
at Gmail, and just give us a comments and let us know if there's anything else you want us to cover. We love when people give us information.
Yep.
And also too, you can go down and subscribe, hit that click button, make some comments if you will. Yep. That also helps out, see what direction we're going, see if you want to move it, what we want to hear next. We like that. So.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks from now, and we look forward to the next episode. We've got some good guests also planned for the end of September.
Yeah.
So we're excited to bring some good guests live here on the show with us.
Yeah, we got some good people coming up. So, all right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Peace out. Much love.
Take care.